More with a Mac Rewind!
Welcome to the Voiceover utility. I have done this course a few years back, but again, it's one of these situations in which people ask me a lot about the Voiceover utility and what they can do with it, and they're not sure. And it's interesting to me because it's almost like there's two ends of the spectrum here. I get people who really are tinkerers. They want to get into the Voiceover utility. They want to change things. They want to see what happens if they do A, B, or C. And then the other end of the spectrum is people who they may know Voiceover utility exists, but they don't want to really try to change anything because they believe that by doing so, they're going to, ruin, quote unquote, Voiceover or do some kind of damage to their ability to use Voiceover successfully. So what I'm going to attempt to do for this lesson is kind of go through the Voiceover utility. I'm not going to get into significant depth with every single feature, every single category, because that would end up turning into a 3 or 4 hour lesson if I went, strictly by the numbers. So what I'm going to do is just give you an overview of the utility. I'm going to touch on some of the categories and hopefully kind of clarify some of the mystery out of it. And then I'm going to talk about things you can do as far as resetting preferences, portable preferences, and things of that nature. We're going to fire up the Voiceover utility by pressing Control, Option, and Function key 8.
Voiceover utility.
Now, just as a side note for some users, because of the way that the the keyboards will typically work in some instances or most instances, you may have to hold down the FN
Alert from
key.
calendar. John Panarese Zoom meeting.
So the FN key with Control, Option,
Alert
and
from
F8
calendar.
Button.
John Panarese Zoom meeting.
Some of the Macs that I've worked with people over the years may be necessary. So just in case you can't get it to work with VOF8, just include the FN key. So when we
Allow
open
Voiceover toolbar,
the Voiceover utility, what you are facing, I guess you could say visually, is the left side of the screen is a table of 11 categories. And when you select something on the left-hand side, that will impact what you will experience on the other side of the screen. Apple loves this kind of, I sometimes jokingly refer to it as the buffet line principle here, where you choose things and go along till you get to the end. So I'm going to go
Voiceover utility categories, table, row 1 of 11.
So you notice it said row 1 of 11. It's a table. So we have to interact with the table.
In utility categories, table, row 1 of 11, general.
So we always start off at the top. The first category is selected by default, but I'm just going to go down the list here just to let you hear the different categories. And I'm going to give you some additional information as well. But let's start off. So general.
Verbosity.
Verbosity. Now I'm just doing Voiceover down arrow.
Speech.
Speech.
Navigation.
Navigation.
Web.
Web.
Sound.
Sound.
Visuals.
Visuals.
Commanders.
Commanders.
Braille.
Braille.
Activities.
Activities.
Voiceover recognition.
And voiceover recognition is the last category. Now, not to confuse or anything like that, but the other part of this is you have to understand is that some of these categories do have subcategories. In fact, 7 of the 11 categories are going to have subcategories that you can choose additional features from. Now, the way Voiceover displays this is by way of what it refers to as tabs. So I'm going to jump back up to the top here, and I'm going to go down 1
verbosity
to verbosity. So I'm going to stop interacting.
Out of utility categories,
and
table.
I'm going to go to the right, VO right arrow.
Speech, selected, tab, 1 of 5.
So you notice it says speech 1 of 5, and it's selected because it always selects the first tab. So the tabs represent the subcategories. So we have speech.
Braille, tab, 2 of 5.
Braille.
Text, tab, 3 of 5.
Text.
Announcements, tab, 4 of 5.
Announcements.
Hints, tab, 5 of 5.
And hints. So since speech is selected, if I keep going to the right.
Default speech verbosity, Medium.
So
Default
that's
speech
the
verbosity.
default level of your verbosity. Now, verbosity, in case people are not familiar with what that means, is basically, I describe it as the level of chattiness of VoiceOver. So how much information do you want VoiceOver to provide for you in a given situation? Medium is the default, but you can set it to beginning or to advanced. And if you turn it to advanced, you're not going to get a lot of feedback from VoiceOver. I advise newbies either to leave it on the medium setting or go with the beginner just until they get their feet under them and they kind of understand the information that's being provided by VoiceOver. Now, when I teach people, just again, as more of a side note, the text verbosity settings I will address when we work with documents because it makes much more sense. But I'm going to just give you a quick look.
Default speech. Hints. Announcement. Text tab. 3.
So I'm going to
Selected.
VO space to select the text tab, which is the third one. So now if I go back to the right,
Announcements. Hints. Tab. Punctuation. Sum. Punctuation. Pop-up button. Repeated punctuation. Spoken with count.
so I'm just going to the right here and letting you hear the different, these are the text verbosity settings that you can affect.
Repeated spaces. Speak with count. Repeated spaces. Line indentation. Speak level. Line while typing speak. Characters and words. While typing speak.
So these are like the basic text verbosity settings that you can change and experiment with. Now, also remember, text verbosity settings are one of two VoiceOver settings that you can access with keyboard commands. VOV, Control Option and the letter V like in Victor, will show you most of these verbosity settings in a floating window that you can use the left or the right arrow to kind of venture through them. And you can use the up and down arrow by itself to make changes to those verbosity settings. And an escape will close that floating window and you can try out your changes and go back and fix them quickly. But understand that the VOV window does not show you all of these verbosity settings for text. You'll have to go into the VoiceOver utility and check them out to get the full picture of all of them. So I'm going to just go back up here.
Toolbar. VoiceOver. Utility cap. In utility
I'm
cap.
just going to go back up to General for a moment.
General.
Since this is the one that is selected by default. Now, General is one of the four that does not have any subcategories. So if we stop interacting.
Out of utility categories. Table. Speak the following greeting after login. Welcome to Mac OS. VoiceOver is on.
So the first thing you hit in the general VoiceOver utility settings is the announcement that VoiceOver makes when you reboot your Mac or start your Mac up as long as VoiceOver is running. So this is actually an edit field. Some of my clients over the years have been quite entertaining in how they change the greeting. I've had all kinds of interesting things that people have had VoiceOver say when it boots up. On occasion, I will, if I get really, really bored, I will mess around a little bit, but I've kind of left it at the default over the last bunch of years.
Display welcome dialog when VoiceOver starts. Unchecked checkbox.
So this is the welcome dialog. You can have it displayed where, like, when you get a brand new Mac, it gives you the option of, if you can actually go through the VoiceOver quick start tutorial if you'd like to do so. You usually end up turning that off the first time through, but this gives you the ability to make sure that you get that option when anytime you start VoiceOver.
Keys to use as the VoiceOver modifier. Control Option or caps lock. Keys.
So this is the modifier choice you have for VoiceOver by default. Apple gives you both the Control and Option keys or the caps lock key to try out and then make a decision. And then since this is a drop-down menu, if you VO space, or as VoiceOver calls it, a pop-up menu.
Menu, checkmark, Control Option or caps lock 2 space, Control plus Option or caps lock.
You can use your VO up or down arrow to decide if you want it to settle on.
Control Option 2 space, Control plus Option.
Just the Control and Option.
Caps lock 2 space, caps lock.
Or just the caps lock key.
Checkmark, Control Option or caps lock 2 space, Control plus Option or caps lock.
Leave it as it is, which I'm going to do. I'm going to hit Escape.
Up arrowhead. Option or portable preferences. Portable
We'll
preferences.
talk about portable preferences a little bit later
Setup
on.
button. Portable prefer. Allow voiceover to be controlled with Apple script. Checked. Checkbox.
This is the last item in the general category, and it's one that I recommend if you plan on using the keyboard commander feature, which we'll discuss briefly a little bit later here. You want to check this box, but with the newer Mac operating systems, just be warned that there will be a dialogue that will just kind of give you a security message from Apple about what that means by making, VoiceOver controllable by Apple scripts. Just go to the OK button and VO space on it, and that will set that checkbox to be checked. So again, I'm going to jump back
Toolbar.
up here.
Voiceover utility
In
category.
case you're wondering what I'm doing to jump to the top so quickly, I have a full-size Apple Magic 2 keyboard, so I press Control Option and Home, and that takes me automatically to the top of the window. If you're using a laptop keyboard, you can use FN Control Option with the left arrow key, and that should take you to the top of the screen as well. So that's what I've been doing to quickly circumvent having to do all the other navigation.
Utility category. In utility.
So I'm just going to
verbosity.
interact and go down here
Speech.
to speech. We'll just talk a couple of minutes here about the speech category. So the speech category has two subcategories. So we'll stop interacting.
Out of utility category. Voices. Selected. Tab.
So
1 of 2.
voices and
Pronunciation. Tab. 2.
pronunciation. So voices is where you can control this is the long way to control like the volume, the speaking rate, etc. But what I want to do is show you, because this question comes up with some of my clients.
Mute speech. Unchecked. Customize language list table.
Is the language list. So this shows you currently what you have available to you as far as voices.
In customize language list. English. Voice. Rate. 40. Column 4. Edit.
So
button.
I'm just VO right arrowing after I interacted with the
Language.
table.
Default. English. Voice. Alex pop-up button.
So there's a pop-up button. So it shows you what your default voice happens to be. If you VO space on this, you can go down your list of whatever voices you have
Menu.
available.
Check mark.
But
Alex.
the one that you might want to do if you're kind of curious or want to experiment,
Manage voices. Ellipse.
is go down to the bottom of the list, which I just did with VO end, and manage voices will give you the ability to add custom voices. So if you wanted to, for example, try out the British voices or the Australian voices or some of the Siri voices, this will present a table to you.
In dial English.
So you interact with the table.
In Arabic. Bangla. English.
So you can select the language.
Out vertical
So if
splitter.
you go to the right,
Voices list. In
you
voices.
interact with the list.
Agnes. 1.5 megabytes. Play button. English. US. Alex. English. US. Allison. 9.9 megabyte. Allison. And
So I'm just VO down arrowing, and you can interact further to check or uncheck any of these languages options, these voice options. You can even play samples. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but we'll see.
in. Allison. iCloud download 37 play button.
Hello, my name is Allison. I am an American English voice.
So you can hear her as, if you want to kind of try it out and get a feel for whether you want to actually include these voices. Now, as a side note, I'm just going to hit escape to
Activities
get out of
scroll
here.
area.
This, as I said, verbosity with VOV is 1, but you also can control your speech settings on the fly if you do not want to go into the VoiceOver utility to do so. This is a little bit of a keyboard gymnastics situation. You have to hold down the Shift, the VoiceOver modifiers, and Command. So in my case, since I'm using Control and Option, it's Shift, Control, Option, Command. And if you tap the left or the right arrow,
Rate 40%.
so I'm just hitting left arrow by itself.
Voice. Alex. Language. Automatically detect language. Braille table. English. US.
So
System.
if I go back to the right,
Language. Automatic voice. Alex. Rate 40%.
so if I do the up or down arrow, still holding down the same modifiers, Shift, Control, Option, Command.
35%. 30%.
So I'm just going to do up arrow,
40%.
and then I'll just let go.
Activities scroll area.
And then it maintains whatever changes you've made to your speech settings. Now, the pronunciation subcategory for speech is where you can control the VoiceOver dictionary. So if you don't like the way VoiceOver is pronouncing a word, you can spell it out phonetically and then make it so that VoiceOver actually says the name or the word or whatever it is that's driving you bananas. It'll say it in the proper way that you want it to say it. I've had this with a few clients, particularly clients who don't like the way their last names are pronounced by VoiceOver. So, they can change it and make it more appealing to their hearing.
Toolbar.
So I'm going to go back up to the top
VoiceOver
here.
utility in navigation. Web. Navigation.
Now, the navigation category
Speech. Navigation.
is, I would leave this alone. You can take a look at it, but remember with VoiceOver, in case you're not familiar, there are 3 cursors that are at work. You have the VoiceOver cursor, the mouse pointer, and the keyboard insertion point. These 3 guys will play nice together by default. They follow each other around. And unless you're dealing with a inaccessible third-party app or a website that has some kind of developer issue, you should really not have to mess with navigation. When you become more advanced and comfortable with VoiceOver, there are situations in which making some changes and manipulating the cursors can be very helpful. But I try to advise or caution new users to really leave navigation alone until they get their feet under them and they have a better grasp of how to use VoiceOver. And then you can kind of play with the cursors. There are keyboard commands I teach my clients later in the training that allow you to manipulate the cursors and make it possible to overcome some of the shortcomings of an inaccessible website or an inaccessible third-party application. So I'm just going to go via web. I come back to. This is all the Safari related stuff or web browsing related VoiceOver settings. For example, the browsing mode, you have what is called DOM or Document Object Model as opposed to group browsing modes for, using VoiceOver on the web. And I get into a lot of specifics. If those of you who have attended my Safari online courses in the past, I go into a lot more detail about the web category.
Sound.
Sound really is another one that only has one category. There's no subcategories. The only thing here that I point out to people as
out of utility category.
Stop interacting.
Mute sound effect. Enable audio ducking. Unchecked checkbox.
Is the enable audio ducking, because I get questions about this. This basically means that when it's enabled, if you are listening to a podcast or you have music playing or you're in a Zoom meeting and VoiceOver is presenting you with an announcement, the other audio will duck in background so that VoiceOver has the prominent volume. Now, this might work for a lot of people, but I uncheck it because of the fact that I'm often in Zoom or FaceTime training sessions with people, and I don't like their audio ducking in background anytime VoiceOver speaks, because that kind of makes it very awkward to try to listen to what their computer or their iPhone is doing, just because my VoiceOver decides to be rude and interrupt. So I personally leave that unchecked.
I absolutely hate audio ducking, especially on the Mac, because it just interrupts what you're doing and you can't hear. It sometimes it doesn't play nice. But to go back to the other part that you were talking about with the sound, it's actually a nice little feature if you know what you're doing in sound, because sometimes when I'm doing certain things, I can have VoiceOver come out of my headset or my Mac and keep the audio for like Zoom in my headset and have my phone or my microphone on mute, so I don't have to have VoiceOver in my ear while people are talking. So if you know what you're doing, you can go in there and change your audio source for VoiceOver and still have other stuff.
Enable audio ducking. Enable positional audio output system default.
So the output is what Cliff is talking about.
Output device.
So output device by default.
System default. Output device.
Is the system default, but if you have other output options available, just like Cliff said, you can make VoiceOver come out of something different. So like a lot of people who do audio engineering love this feature so that they can focus specifically on the music tracks and have VoiceOver coming out of a different speaker or something like that. I don't really do much with audio, so that's the only reason why it's not something that I have ventured into. So I'm going to go back
enable
here.
Mute utility category in visuals.
Visuals. This is an area for people who might be what I like to call hybrid users. In other words, they have some vision that they can take advantage of, but they are also, they need voiceover for specific situations. It's mainly designed for teachers of the visually impaired, or TVIs, who are working with blind students, where they can, for example, turn on the caption panel so that they can know what voiceover is actually saying when the blind user is, controlling the computer. You can also control the menu size, the size of the voiceover cursor, et cetera, et cetera. So the only time I venture in here is when I'm working. I've had instances where I've had TVIs who've asked for training, either to teach a blind student or help, be around while I am training their student on voiceover so they can see what is going on, as we work. So that's what the visuals are about.
Commanders.
The commanders are I consider it optional, quote unquote, but I strongly emphasize that people consider using the commanders features. So I'm going to stop interacting. And again, I'm not going to get into a lot of specifics here.
Out of utility.
I just want you to hear your options.
Trackpad, selected, tab, 1 of 4.
So you have trackpad. Now, if you have a Mac that does not include a trackpad, this will be disabled. So in other words, if you have like an iMac and you've chosen not to use either, a Magic Trackpad or whatever, but if you have a laptop computer, all the Mac laptop computers have the multi-touched glass trackpad. So that will always be enabled.
Numpad, tab, 2.
Numpad is only going to be available to you if you have the full-size keyboard or a USB numpad. This allows you to map let's just say voiceover commands that would normally involve multiple key presses, like interacting and stop interacting. You can map them to single key presses on your numeric keypad. So for instance, with me, plus and minus is what I use for start and stop interacting, just so I don't have to keep pressing down 4 keys anytime I need to interact or uninteract with items. And it's the one commander that you have full access to change all of Apple's defaults. The trackpad commander, which in case you're not familiar with it, that allows you to use the gestures from iOS on the Mac. The thing is, you can't change the existing gestures. You can customize by adding gestures, and in which case, for the most part, you have to include a modifier key. In other words, Control, Option, Command, or Shift, and with a gesture. Now, with Numpad Commander, you also can include a modifier to make what I like to call levels of the numeric keypad. I have, as I said earlier, the Magic 2 keyboard, so I do have the 10-key numeric keypad that's included with my keyboard. So I take full advantage of Numpad Commander and have come up with multiple rows.
I don't have the Magic or the Apple keyboard, but I have the Logitech equivalent. And what I mean by that is it's made by Logitech. It can pair with 3 devices, but it is identical. And when I say identical, it is identical. The only difference between this keyboard and the one that John has is the fact that in the 6-pack, there's 3 keys above it that are dedicated to switch between devices. Otherwise, the layout is identical. And up until about 3 or 4 months ago, when John did his last winter course, I wasn't even using the trackpad or the numpad commander. I guarantee you, if you're not using it, you're missing out, because I'm mad that I didn't start using it years ago.
I told you that many times. And Cliff, by the way, probably owns every keyboard that is in existence. So if you have any questions about keyboards, he is the guy to go to. All right, then we have
keyboard tab.
The keyboard commander, which is another neat feature that you can either assign voiceover commands to, but you also can use it as an application launcher, which is one of my favorite things to do. So the way that the keyboard commander works is you can choose either the right option key, the left option key, or either in conjunction with a letter, shifted letter, or number, and tie them to a specific either voice over command, or, as I said, you can have it launch an Apple script or an application. So for instance, for me, right option P will launch pages. Right option N will launch numbers. The defaults that Apple gives you, right option M, like in Mail, will launch the Apple Mail app. Right option S, like in Safari, will launch Safari. And I know Cliff has got a bazillion keyboard commands that he set up as well. So we both are really, we really have taken full use of the keyboard commander feature. And again, I always tell my clients these things are quote unquote optional, but I always strongly recommend and encourage people to use them. And then the last commander is the Quick Nav commander. And Quick Nav commander is tied to the single key navigation use that you can either use with or without Quick Nav. So in other words, on the web, letter H, you can move by heading. Shifted H, you can move back by heading. T is table. F is frame, etc. So you actually have the ability, if there's any navigation element type that is not included in the defaults, you can add them if you choose to do so. To be honest with you, I've added a few only in proof of concept and working with clients, but it's not something that I frequently need to do. I just use the basics that are included that Apple has.
Just as a side note, as you would say, if you're a QuickNav user, the letter F is actually going to take you to an edit field, not by frame. So if you want to use that one, yeah, it actually takes you to a edit fields to search for stuff like that. And I don't even know what frames are personally, but I'm on Safari. I don't use nothing but QuickNav. I don't like the voiceover keys on, because I just can navigate a whole lot faster. It makes my workflow a lot smoother. But yeah, when QuickNav is on, and single letter navigation is on. Let me throw that in there too. Single letter navigation. The letter F takes you to an edit field for like searching and filling out text.
Okay. All right. So those are the commanders.
Keep voiceover utility category in Braille.
So Braille is the next one down, and this is only going to be important for people who are using external Braille displays, either USB connected or Bluetooth connected. And this allows you to customize the language, the output, 8-dot or 6-dot. And you can have multiple Braille displays, by the way, connected to your Mac, and you choose a primary display. But if you are somebody who is fortunate enough to be able to either afford to have multiple Braille displays, or you work in a technology center where you have that luxury, you can have different displays connected to your Mac.
Activities,
again, this is a optional quote unquote feature that I just, again, I don't necessarily encourage it as much as the commanders, because activities is really more of a personal thing. What activities are is you can take a specific application and set up specific voiceover settings that are different from your defaults that only load with that activity. One of the basic examples that I offer to people, because I've had this with more than a few clients over the years, some people love the Alex voice like me, but they don't like Alex reading text because of the fact that Alex takes breaths between paragraphs, and some people find it creepy or freaks them out. So what they will do is, if they're using TextEdit or Microsoft Word, they'll set up an activity and they'll change the speaking voice to one of the other options, so that anytime they jump into the word processor, they don't have to worry about Alex being the voice that's going to read the text. I know that's a very basic example. There's a lot of other things you can do. Activities can be very, very, very complex. I've worked with clients, for example, who are Apple support people. They use a specific database application that is not fully accessible to VoiceOver. And we had to set up an activity where they use hotspots and things like that, so that they can actually navigate the database program and jump to, like, let's say, a customer's notes and things like that. So again, activities can be as simple as you need them or as complex as you need them.
Voiceover recognition.
And then the last one is voiceover recognition, which is the image description, which I highly recommend you turn on. I'm sure that as time passes, Apple is going to add additional things to this particular category, and there is no subcategory. I think that should be pretty logical to the voiceover recognition category here. So like I said, 11 categories. You should really explore the voiceover utility. Now, if you're going to experiment with your voiceover preferences, you do have safety nets for yourself. So I'm going to go to the menu bar here with VOM.
Menu bar, Apple.
And I'm going to go to the right to the file menu. So I'm VO right arrowing.
Voiceover file.
So if I go down the file menu,
import preferences ellipsis command
so we
shift
have
I,
import
export
and
preferences,
export. So what this means is that as you're experimenting with your voiceover preferences and you like them, but you still want to try changing other things, you can export them so that you have the ones that you like saved. So in case you do blow up your preferences later, you can import the ones back in that you do like. So you don't have to go back to square one. Now, the other things you can do here,
set up portable preferences ellipsis command shift,
set up portable preferences. What setting up portable preferences is you put your voiceover preferences on a USB thumb drive. So if you are a student and you're on campus and there's Macs in the computer lab or the library, or you go over to a friend's house or a family member who has a Mac and you want to jump online to look up something, you can stick the thumb drive into one of the USB ports on the computer, and VoiceOver, when it's turned on, will ask you if you want to use the portable preferences. So this allows you to borrow the Mac and use your preferences instead of having to figure out and change them on the computer. Especially if you're working with another blind person, you don't necessarily want to mess up their VoiceOver preferences with yours. So once you are done, you eject the thumb drive and the voiceover preferences go back to the defaults or whatever was set up prior.
Reset basic voiceover preferences
Then
ellipsis.
we have reset basic,
reset custom voiceover preferences, sub, reset all voiceover,
and reset all voiceover preferences. Now, all means everything, including custom. So custom voiceover preferences allow you to select specific categories that you can reset. Basics preferences are just the basic ones that don't affect things like the keyboard commander, numpad commander, and a lot of those other like customizable preferences. Now, when you hit the VO space on any of these, so I'm just going to go to
reset custom voiceover, reset basic voiceover preference,
basic ones, just so you hear the description.
Voice in dialogue, alert, cancel, reset button. Basic voiceover preferences include all general, verbosity, navigation, web, sound, and visual settings.
Alert
voice
from
settings.
VoiceOver utility. Are you sure you want to reset basic VoiceOver
I'm getting a stupid
preferences?
system message here, so let me go.
Basic voiceover preferences include all general, verbosity, navigation, web, sound, and visual settings, voice settings, and non-command related settings for numpad commander, keyboard commander, trackpad commander, and braille displays. These options will be reset to their default values. This action can't be undone.
Meaning non-command, command related, for numpad. So if you set up like launching, specific apps and things like that, or numpad commander, you have specific, like I changed mine to interact and stop interact for plus and minus. Resetting the basic preferences doesn't reset those, but that would be the all or the custom. So there is kind of a fine line here. I like people to understand about resetting preferences. Now, sometimes resetting, I'm just going to hit escape because I'm not looking to reset my preferences. But sometimes when you are having really strange things happen, particularly with voiceover, things that, you can't explain, or rebooting the computer that just don't seem to be solvable, you may want to just take the ultimate chance and just reset your preferences back to factory defaults. Because I just had, for example, one of my Connecticut state clients who was having really odd things happening. She reset her voiceover preferences and it seemed to like make everything go away that she was having problems with. And I've done this myself. Sometimes what happens if you keep the same preferences and you upgrade, let's say from one operating system to the new one, sometimes the files and the voiceover preferences get corrupted. So by resetting the preferences or, importing the ones that you have saved in the past can, cure strangeness that you might be dealing with from the voiceover perspective. So that is really the voiceover utility in an overall nutshell. As I said, I didn't get into detail with some of the preferences because that would, really totally sidetrack us. But hopefully this material has given you a pretty good idea of what to expect when you get into the voiceover utility. I always try to encourage my users to look around. Don't be afraid. You're not, if you do change things that affect you negatively, you can reset them. You're not stuck. You're not going to break the computer. You're not going to break VoiceOver. So definitely take some time, go through the preferences, get an idea of how they work, and use them to your advantage.
Help button. Search
So we
text.
will now
Zoom.u.
open the floor
Zoom.us.
to questions that Cliff will field, since you're only hearing my voice on the recording.
The voiceover, the language and voice rotor, and how that one of them is one question I have about it is that when you choose voices, at least last time I tried it, when I would try to choose voices from in there, with what all are the keys? The VO, command, shift, all that stuff with the left and right arrows. I thought that I could choose which voices I wanted to see in there, but it seems to default to ones that I would have never picked.
Well, the only way that you're going to see extra voices in there is if you went into the VoiceOver utility and downloaded them. So every voice that you download will be optional to pick from that list.
But you have to go down to the bottom. I mean, it won't. You can't change the order of them.
Oh,
right?
no.
I sure wish you could. It would be nice.
Right, it would be. But no, they put them in their own order.
But the other question I had is about the languages. If you tell it to, I can't remember what it's called, recognize languages or something like that, what does it actually require? I might have bilingual text where there's English words and Spanish words, stuff I'm sending to a email group I've got. And I kind of want to read the Spanish words in Spanish and the English ones in English. A lot of scanning programs like Seeing AI and Scan will do that. Will VoiceOver do that?
That's actually something I've never tried. My best answer there would be to email John and ask him, or just try it. I mean, I don't think VoiceOver is going to switch languages on the fly, because I don't think it's that talented. But I could be wrong. But that's something that I've never tried.
I thought maybe it could become that talented because there's so many other programs that do that now.
Right. Look, I could be wrong, but like I said, email John and ask him, because that's something I've actually never tried. Look, I can barely speak English, and you want me to talk about another language?
Oh, you speak fine.
Can we just go back to basics? When John was demonstrating the general, the table on the left-hand side, the general, and the various other. If you wanted to pick, say, general, because you wanted to have a look in there, and you selected general, do I hear it right that then what you do is you go out of the table by doing control, option, and up arrow, and then move along to the right with your arrow key to go get to the various tabs?
That is correct, but technically you don't have to actually select it. You just stop on the category you want, stop interacting, and then go to the right and go explore what's in there.
Okay, so you go to general. Sorry to be specific here. Basically, when I've been going into things, I've been finding it very difficult sometimes to, when I say go into a category like general, to then find out exactly where the tabs are and how to interact with the tabs.
Well,
it just hasn't made
to interact with
sense to me.
You want to listen for the in VoiceOver specifically. You want to listen for the word table, which is going to be right after the toolbar on the left-hand side. Once you interact with that table, then you can VO down arrow and go through the various categories. When you get to the one you want, then you stop interacting and then go to the right and explore what's in that category. So so the various tabs that you're talking about are technically in the table. Interact with that table, find the one you want, stop interacting, and then go to the right and explore it.
Okay. So when you say stop interacting, does that mean you do your VO and up arrow?
Exactly. Your VO shift up arrow.
I thought there was somebody in front of me, but I just wanted to say between John and Cliff, the two of you guys have gotten more people started on the Mac very often together, and I just wanted to say thank you.
No problem. I mean, as you know, Mary, back in the day, these kind of things weren't available to us veteran Mac users. 2010, 11, 12, when I first started, I mean, you basically had to learn it yourself. I mean, National Braille Press had a book, but why would I want to read instead of just trying it? I mean, there was Mac visionaries, but it had just gotten started, and there wasn't very many blind Mac users. So, yeah, nowadays we got more resources and avenues to explore. But back then, no, you just had to teach yourself.
At the moment, as I say, I haven't got a Mac, so I'm learning my keystrokes using my iPad. Now, is that a reasonable idea? Can I do that? Or am I not going to get the whole benefit, or do I need to see if I can borrow the Mac to sort it out?
The Mac would be the better option, but using a keyboard with the iPad, based on the fact that Apple is trying to integrate iOS and Mac OS together, but there are some things on the Mac that the iPad. Well, let me rephrase this. There's the Mac and iPad can pretty much do the same thing, but the Mac requires less interaction or less steps to do certain things. Like file management is the first thing that comes to mind for me. So like on the iPad, you have to swipe, double tap, select, and do all that. With the Mac, you can just push Command C and copy it. Then you go to the folder and Command V and paste it. But with the iPad, you'd have to go to the folder, swipe, double tap to get your options, and then double tap again to drop it where you want to. So you can do equivalents on the Mac and iPad, but the Mac will make your workflow for my file management a lot faster. And you might want to check out my podcast that John has joined me on a few times with, and it's called Tech Talk Coast to Coast. I can send it to everybody, but I did my More with the Mac series there this year. There's now 10 sessions up. I just put 2 more up this week, one on Calendar and one on Contacts, the Contacts app and the Calendar app. But if you start from session 1, that'll walk you through the basics on how to navigate your Mac, the different demonstrations of apps that we use, and Apple Mail, Messages, Safari, moving stuff around on your dock, managing your applications folder. I mean, we go into great detail. We even discuss pages, numbers, word, and text edit on those episodes. And John joined me for most of those. Like I said, John has joined us a lot. We basically work together now instead of, we've never worked against each other, but John has been a bit avid user or advocate of pushing people to, check out our podcast because it's not a competition. Everybody learns different and everybody teaches different, which is what he always says. So that's why we give you different and multiple avenues to learn this stuff from, because, you never know what you might pick up from one that you didn't from the other. Is there any other questions? One thing I will point out about the voices, if you want to download them, just listen for Voiceover's information. Because if you go to a voice and it says play, download, or play in iCloud, that means if in iCloud will mean it's already been downloaded. You just need to select it. But if it says download, then that means that is not on your Mac yet. So that way you can download it and have that in your list of voices in your voices list when you do that finger gymnastics. One thing I will mention, and this is irritating to me, is those same voices that you download in VoiceOver Utility, for some strange reason, when you go to adjust your clock settings and you want your time to be spoken by a different voice, them voices that you downloaded are not available. They make you download them again some of them are not available. They just don't tell you that, but you go to download them and then you go to that list in your clock and they're not there. If there's no other questions, again, my website is stirredup.com. That's STURITUP. And you can actually get directly to my podcast page because it has its own website, and that's coasttocoaststudio.com. And that's the number 2, not the word 2. Of course, you can go to Mac for the Blind and 5 free tutorials to download there. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for joining us today.
Remember, for all Mac, iOS, and any kind of Apple training, visit macfortheblind.com. John Panarese has some free courses and some reasonable paid courses. You won't be disappointed. See you next time.